noise with you. It just collapses on me.
So what's happened so far is that we still have that external portion going on, but it is basically completed at this point in the 72-hour chick. So like I said, the 48-hour chick, that top half of that body is only flopping over at this point to the left, but now that full, like the whole embryo has flopped over to the left, and that's what you're seeing, is that the ventral portion is moving that whole embryo onto its side. We can also see that caudal flexure I talked about right here very nicely. And we happen to, and that flexure, remember, is going to form that cranga on our embryo. So when you have this caudal flexure happening, on the end of the tail right here, you then have this little bulb looking thing. And this little bulbous looking kind of protrusion of that tail is the lantoids that you probably heard about from lecture.
What is that?
This is bulb. Can you see? It's kind of hard to see right here, but it's like a widened area of that tail. And this is going to be an extra embryonic structure, and it's basically going to be your forming cloaca. I can't talk today. Okay, and then you've also probably noticed that this back portion of our chick looks a lot more bent, and that head is like completely like turned around now. And that's going to be another flexure point happening on this 72-hour chick, and that's going to be your cervical flexure. So this cervical flexure is just making this head go further, so that like nose is touching almost the belly of our chick. So just like on the 48-hour, the nose of our chick is somewhere right here, and we have our lovely heart right here. Our atrium of our heart is this top kind of bulb that's much smaller than our ventricle. They're a lot more defined looking, and as we go along, they're going to start having, the two ventricles and two atriums, but we can't see that yet here. So in our nose region of our chick, we have that telencephalon tissue. It looks a little weird here, and don't let yourself be confused and think this is diencephalon, because this bulb is not your optic cup. It's actually what is called a telencephalic vesicle, and you're going to have two of these form out of the telencephalon tissue to either side of your chick's face, basically. And these telencephalon vesicles are going to just form that cerebral hemisphere in our chick. So that's all it is right here. Behind this telencephalon tissue, we're going to have our diencephalon right here. You can sort of see the optic cup, I think, right here. It's kind of hard to see on the projector. But this is our diencephalon right behind that telencephalon tissue. Our mesencephalon tissue looks pretty much the same. Behind that mesencephalon tissue, we have that dorsal isthmus, which is quite concave now on our chick embryo. And it just lets us know that this mesencephalon tissue has stopped, and we have a little bit of our metencephalon tissue right here. And then, of course, the thin roof of our myelencephalon on the top of that embryo. So if you can kind of see right here, there's a little round shadow. And this round shadow is going to be your otic vesicle forming right here. It looks kind of out of place to me, but again, your nose is somewhere right here, and you can kind of think about it. You have your ear forming. And then, of course, one last thing you can really see on this slide are those lovely developing somites. But there's not much you can tell from this whole mouth. So in this slide, not much is going on. It's not really stained. It's a live whole mouth slide, I think, where this embryo, I believe, is still alive when they took this picture. But anyway, our head of our embryo is like right here. You can see our lovely blood-filled heart in the center, and then of course we can go down to the tail. And really all this picture shows us is some lovely vein artery action happening. So this little darkened red area is going to be our Vitalan vein, and you can tell this because it's going into that sinus stenosis area of our heart. That Vitalan vein, before before it connects to the sinus venosus, it's gonna be kind of like the bulbous arteriosus with the truncus venosus. It's gonna have kind of like an extra name added to it where that connection's happening to the sinus venosus. And this connection of where that vitelline vein is connecting into the sinus venosus is gonna be called your ductus venosus. So that's all that ductus venosus is. It's where that vitelline vein is meeting that heart area. It's where it's connecting into that sinus venosus. So don't let that confuse you. And then we have our vitelline arteries off to the side, just like what we saw in our 48-hour trick. And just remember, these arteries are going to connect to your dorsal aorta, and we can see that better on the next slide. Does anyone need me to repeat anything? Here's another lovely India ink slide that shows us all our veins and arteries. You have a lot more blood vessels going on in the 72-hour shift than the 48. But again, we still have our basic ones. We have those vitelline arteries coming off closer to the tail region. You can kind of see it connecting to that dorsal aorta right here, because this is your dorsal aorta. And then this right here is going to be your vitelline vein again, and you can't really see it on the other side, on that right side of the chicken, but here's your left vitelline vein. And of course your heart is probably somewhere right here, so you can see it going towards the heart. And then for your dorsal aorta, you have your aortic arches somewhere in this area, and you can kind of see a couple right here, really darkly staining quite clearly. These two are quite nice to look at for those aortic arches coming off that dorsal aorta. For your chick, you're eventually going to have that fifth aortic arch kind of degenerate, so you're only going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. You won't have that fifth one. It's just going to kind of disappear.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
Aortic arch.
Yeah. So here's the start of our cross section. Just like in the 48-hour chick, it's going to have that weird regions where one side is more anterior than the other side of the cross section, which is going to be more posterior. So this would be kind of our more posterior side, because we're cutting through that myelencephalon tissue right here with that thin roof to it. And then right here, it sort of looks like a bowling pin, but really it's more round in shape, and that's going to be our mesencephalon tissue. And we know this is probably not that myelencephalon. It's really darkly staining, really thick, so we can probably guess this is our metencephalon tissue right here. So of course, this little connection between our metencephalon tissue and mesencephalon tissue is going to be that dorsal isthmus, just like on our whole notes. There's not much else going on this slide except that we can see our lovely amnion surrounding our whole embryo along here, and then we can also see our chorion at the top and our lovely yolk sac at the bottom, where this embryo kind of has a pocket between that amnion and the embryo. This pocket is just going to be that amniotic cavity, and between the amnion and the yolk sac, we're going to have that exocoel. So just a little difference so you guys don't get confused if you have a question like that on the exam.
Can you say those two again? Sorry.
So between your embryo and the amnion, when you get a nice view of it, that's going to be your amniotic cavity. And between this amnion and that yolk sac, you're going to have your exocoel, which is just extra embryonic kind of cavity.
What was the bone thing?
This isn't the bowling pin shape yet. It looks kind of like the diencephalon, but if you look at it, it really is more rounded. The diencephalon's kind of stretched out when you look at it, so don't let that confuse you. Look at the whole shape when you're trying to discern brain tissue, not just that inner cavity. And any more questions?
Where did you say the dorsal isthmus was?
The dorsal isthmus is going to be in between, so it's going to be this tissue right here. So again, we have our myelencephalon right here, and then we have our mesencephalon, which is really nice and round right here. It's easy to discern. And then we have our metencephalon. And it's kind of hard to tell it apart right here from our myelencephalon, so we're just going to call that the lamencephalon area right here. We asked Dr. Kemp, and he doesn't like rhomomeres anymore for the semester, so he likes neuromeres, which are just the same thing, essentially. Yeah. But again, these are just our neuromeres. You can see how they're kind of rounded, like we saw. I think it's in our sagittal section really nicely on the 48-hour shift. Can't remember anymore. So just mesencephalon, metencephalon, neuromeres, and then myelencephalon. Nothing new. Right here, since we're kind of up in that terrain we're cutting through like this is going to be our otic vesicle. Just like in the frog. And then, to everyone's joy, we're going to start talking about the ganglia today and all your nerves. And I believe it's on the teaching, or like not the digital lab manual, but the other website page. You're going to have a whole list that lays out all the nerves and the ganglia that you want to look at. I think it's laid out in a way with like an acronym so you can help learn it, but you can make whatever you want. But you need to know that for your lecture exam. I think it'll be on the next one. Don't hold me to that. And you'll definitely have some questions about ganglia on your lab final. That's in November. So I'd start studying that. There's quite a few of them, and they're kind of confusing. But basically, to just review before we start going into them, we have our central nervous system, and it's going to have nerves going back and forth from it, right? Everyone knows that. And so when we talk about these nerves, they can either be associated with ganglia, or they're not associated with ganglia. And the nerves that are typically associated with ganglia are going to have sensory functions. So when we see nerves with ganglia, they're going to go to things like our ears and our eyes, and do all those lovely sense functions that we keep talking about. When they're without ganglia and they're just kind of nerves by themselves, they're going to have the motor functions. That's what they're going to do with it. They're going to have help the chick move and everything like that.
So sense functions versus motor functions. Okay.
And when we talk about ganglia, all that means is basically bunches of tissue with nerves associated with them. So it's just tissue kind of wrapped around nerves. So you can actually see a couple on this slide, and you'll have these two right here, and it has two different names for these. They're the gasserian, and they can also be called the semilunar ganglia. And we'll see in the next slide that these are associated with the trigeminal nerve. And this trigeminal nerve is also cranial nerve number 5. So you're going to have to learn everything, just like with your arches, the different names for each nerve number. Yeah. So we have our semilunar ganglia right here. And we'll see on the next slide that it's associated with the trigeminal nerve. Yeah, it's just trigeminal because it has like, you'll see it. It has like 3 branches.
Geminal or germinal? GEM?
General, but I mean, like, cranial nerve number 5. I think it's germinal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I was like, oh, it's germinal. Okay. So we also have 2 other kind of nerves hanging out right here. These have a long, confusing name right here. And it is the acoustico-facialis nerve. I'm probably butchering that. But it's nerves 7 and 8 combined together. It's a nerve because you see how close it is to our brain tissue right here. That's the only way we're distinguishing it as a nerve in this slide. And then one last thing to confuse you on all your nerves. On that chart, you'll see some have extra things attached to the name, yeah.
What cranial nerve are those associated with?
I don't,
Oh, it is.
You said what?
I'm an idiot. That's one of the nerves. My bad.
yeah, not big deal there. Okay, so on that chart, you'll see that you're gonna have a lot of things like superior nerves or jugular nerves. And if you see this, don't let it confuse you, it's just telling us where those nerves are in our chicken. So, they'll actually help you sleep probably. You might also see one, for example, that says nodos, and that just means like more ventral. I can kind of think of it, our chick's wrapping around and the nose is kind of touching on its belly. So that's what you can think about for that. Okay. So here we're cutting farther towards that nose, so we're going like this in our slides. We're still in that mesencephalon tissue right here. It's nice and round, just like all our previous chicken slides. And we're also still in that myelencephalon, where we're getting closer to that spinal cord region, just because we can tell by that look it's getting more like a straight up and down, even cavity looks good. But we're still in the myelencephalon. We can still see our otic vesicles to either side of that tissue. We can see our notochord now. It looks really wiggly and wobbly, but that's just how the section was cut. Still our notochord. Here we can see those three little parts to that, that trigeminal nerve from that semilunar ganglia. And these are each gonna have different functions with them. So this first one right here is gonna be your maxillary branch to that one. Then you're gonna have your mandibular branch and your ophthalmic branch. So maxillary, mandible, mandibular, and then ophthalmic.
Yep.
Yeah. Maxillary, and mandibular, and then ophthalmic. And it's mimicked on that top portion too. Same things.
And those are H nerves, or
It's branches of the
Branch.
same nerve. Have to look at that.
Branches of the ganglia.
It's associated with that semilunar ganglia. This is that trigeminal nerve. For nerves. This is the point I got to in reviewing it, so it gets confusing for me. Okay. We can also start to see that we cut through our anterior cardinal veins right here. That's just what these are. Again, it's like we're seeing multiple kind of sections of that vein, just how it was cut. It also gives that lovely look to our notochord, just with the slicing that they did. We can also see some other ganglion right here, and that's just the same as in our frog. That's going to be our spinal ganglion and dorsal root or dorsal root ganglion. You can use either name, just like on your final. You can also see a dermatome of the cellmite right here. That thick painting. Yeah, they're kind of hard to see. They're really close to that myelencephalon tissue, that like darkened spot. That's really easy to tell. But this is our frog. And then on your circulatory chart, you have, you might have seen this, but you haven't talked about it in class yet. But you can have that circle of Willis that you keep seeing up near that anterior portion of whatever animal you're looking at. And this is gonna be your basilar artery right here, and that's gonna connect into that circular or circle of Willis. And this is just basically an area where a lot of that circle of Willis is just where a bunch of veins and everything, vessels are gonna connect to that brain, so that our chick doesn't go brain dead. Is there any questions so far, everyone? Board? spinal cord yet. We have cut into the synovium at this point now. And we can see the start of Cecil's pocket right here. It kind of looks fuzzy to me because we're starting to just cut into it right there. And of course, we're going to have our other pocket behind it eventually. We still have our notochord, but it looks normal now. It's not all in a line or squiggly. It's back to that nice round circle. You can see our dorsal aortic arches right here. And you can also see them a little bit back here just because of how this slide was cut. So those are your dorsal aortic roots right here. And then in front of those, to either side, and then also back here, you're going to have those cranial cardinal veins, or anterior cardinal veins. And again, just how they were sliced, you can see multiple sections of them to either side. And then of course, we still have our dermatome of our somite either side of that myelencephalon. Okay. We finally cut into our diencephalon right here. It looks a little bit more oblong in shape, and we definitely have that lovely, diencephalon. And we have our synovium still. This new area is going to be our pharynx or pharyngeal region. And then of course we have our myelencephalon, probably still not exactly spinal cord yet with that notochord right below it. This part of the diencephalon is going to be that infundibulum again. We're going to have that tuberculum posteriorus now. Also in our 72-hour chicken, that diencephalon is going to have the epiphysis formed at this point. Just so you know, it's there now. You can find it. And then we can see Ratke's pouch or pocket right here. It's kind of like a horseshoe shape in this picture. And again, it's right near that infundibulum. That kind of gives away that we're in Ratke's pocket at this point, as opposed to Cecil's pocket. And of course, it's coming off of our lovely synovium. You can see sort of the beginning slice or section of our optic cup right next to the diencephalon tissue. Nothing new there. And then we can also see one kind of new thing are our visceral arches right here. You can probably see this might be like number 1 right here, just because how it's sectioned doesn't look nice and kind of rounded. This would be number 2, number 3, number 4. Number 4, you can see those aortic arches quite clearly in it. This one's still a little bit of blood at the bottom still. So numbers 1 and 2 are just going to degenerate and amniotes, just to review. And then number 3 right here is going to lead into the internal carotid artery. So, pretty cheap, yeah.
Does the path of the gut come like the mouth is gonna be back into the board and then it comes back towards us and it curves around into the pharynx?
I think a little bit right now, your chick's kind of like that. And remember, we're kind of slicing the awkward angle, so that's why you're seeing 2 of it, because it's kind of wrapping. Yeah, so it's all like the same portion, but this is more like
So that's the
your
thing.
mouth. Yeah, this is more like your mouth right here, guys, because that your chick is wrapped around, and we're cutting at those weird angles. So you can see my mouth, but you can also see like this back pharyngeal region right here. That's why you're seeing both parts of it.
And then the dorsal aorta is the third one.
Yeah. Right here. Or
Right there.
here. Yeah. Yeah. You can see them, the roots starting to connect together. That was the last thing I was supposed to talk about and stuff.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You pointed it out. how we're putting through why everything looks really strange. Alright. Our diencephalon has that nice bowling shape or kind of bad shape to it right now. Really easy to tell, especially because you can see our lovely optic cup to either side, and you can actually see our lovely pigmented retina running along the outside, and then our sensory retina. The lens right now would be that lens vesicle because it's not fully formed. Don't get confused like on the frog. It won't be the lens until later in development. And then we're still in that myelencephalon up top. It's still not evenly shaped in that cavity, so we know we're not in the spinal cord. We have our notochord, our dorsal aorta right here, nice and formed now. Those roots have completely combined. You can still kind of see those arches right here. This one would be our hyoid arch probably, right here. So this would be our mandibular arch. So, and then right here too, just because of how it's sectioned, this would also be part of that mandibular arch, if this makes sense. Basically it's gonna have two parts to it. In this first part right here is gonna be your maxillary process, and it's gonna sit kind of on top. And then this bottom process is gonna be your mandibular process of this mandibular arch. So your mandibular arch is gonna have two parts to it. And those parts just have different names. The maxillary process and then the mandibular process right here. Does that make sense?
What arch is that?
It's your visceral arch number one.
It's a visceral arch, not mandibular arch.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, trying to get all the names in there. In between our hyoid arch right here, you can see the structure starting to form. That's gonna be our developing thyroid that we all love. Just like in our frog. It's gonna be an evagination with an E of the floor of the foregut, that thyroid. And then of course, we have numbers 3 and numbers 4 for our visceral arches. And you can see that visceral pouch kind of pretty well between 3 and 4 right here, just like in our frog.
Which one's the thyroid ring that's in there?
Right here. Our thyroid. Okay. One last thing too. In this little, it's like another little, it's not a pouch, but it's a groove in your hyoid arch. And this groove is going to be called the hyoid mandibular groove. So when you're drawing me lovely pictures, that's just what that is. And then the last thing right here, again, we still see those cranial cardinal veins. Are there any questions? Still in diencephalon tissue right here, still really length and shaped. We are getting really close to our spinal cord right here. I'm not sure if I'd call it definitively spinal cord yet, still like very thin, still kind of bigger on that top portion. Probably go with myelencephalon. Again, you can see that lovely pigmented retina, and that sensory retina, and our lens vesicle, and our optic cup right here. We've cut back too in these slides into that heart region. So we're probably, because that heart's kind of still sticking out in our chick right here, we're in a slide like that across our chick. So this portion right here is probably gonna be the start of our ventral aorta. It kind of looks fuzzy or hazy right here. It's kind of hard to see it definitively. That's probably what it is. This whole region is gonna be that heart area. Just to let you guys know, but it's really hard to tell anything apart. the more flattened or widened area of that laryngeotracheal groove. And it's gonna form basically your glottis from this like thin center portion. And it's also gonna form your esophagus from this bulbous portion closer to your dorsal aorta right here. So esophagus, glottis, interglottal groove, which is this whole thing, and the glottal groove is just that widened or flattened portion of that laryngeal tracheal groove, which of course we'll see later, but we're in the next slide. Again, we have our cranial caudal veins or cardinal veins, cranial cardinal veins right here. And that's pretty much it for this slide.
I thought you were gonna say this is it.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just hold on to that thought. Alright, so our picture is a lot better here. You can actually see it quite clearly. You're probably cutting into that truncus arteriosus right here. It's kind of hard to say, but that's just what we're gonna call it. And then we have our lovely atrium right here. Looks like it's filled with blood. That's why it's dark.
That's pretty neat.
We have our dorsal aorta, and then we have those cranial cardinal veins right here, or anterior cardinal veins, whatever you want to call them. I don't remember. And then we have that nice view of that laryngeotracheal region, and you can see in comparison how it's not like flattened out on the ends. See how they're kind of wider looking there? That just differentiates that glottal groove region of that laryngeotracheal. So we would just call that just laryngeotracheal region. That wouldn't be the glottal groove region anymore. So don't let that confuse you. And again, as you can probably guess by the name, it's just gonna form our larynx and trachea. The last thing to really point out on this slide, you can see our lovely optic stalks connecting into our optic cups from our diencephalon. This area right here is gonna be our opticele. It's kind of hard to see, but it's that clear area. It's a little bit easier to see right here. It's our opticele. And then this area right here see it right here, but just know it's kinda in between those two long buds. This little white dot right here is probably just an artifact of the slide, so you guys don't get confused, 'cause it's got squished right there. We're almost done, so. Take a deep breath. Alright, so we have our atrium, and it is connecting right here to our sinus venosus. You can kind of see that right cardinal vein right here, connecting in. So this connection to the sinus venosus is of course gonna be that common cardinal vein. It's not gonna be that anterior or posterior, it's gonna be the common, just because we like to name everything in duplicate. And then of course we have our dorsal aorta. You can see our posterior cardinal veins to either side really well. And then we have our lovely esophagus too. Still right there, it's kind of hard to find it probably on your slides, but get used to that. Might be an easy item for you guys. The only other thing to show right here, you can see that left common cardinal vein connecting into our sinus venosus. Still have the atrium, still have the spinal cord, and probably our talencephalon tissue right here. You can still see our dermatomes of our somites. Nothing too new. The last thing we have to go over today, that will probably help no one, but that Dr. Kemp likes, is this cloth chicken. It's been floating around since forever, since that guy on the wall's been not teaching. So, one of the students made this, and it's kind of hard to see, but if my hand was like the forming embryo, we're going pretty far back on this, we're at, like it was 72 hour at this point. But each of these little cloth kind of rounds are gonna be a layer. So of course we have our ectoderm on this side, we have our two mesoderm layers in red, for those two inner layers that we've been looking at way back when. And then we have that yolky layer of our endoderm, right? So if we have our embryo forming, it's kind of like puff out, I guess, like this. And eventually, we're gonna have these layers fold over, like we've seen before. Where those, what do you call it? Things, the S name. Like, yeah. Yeah, the cereamniotic folds, guys, are gonna come in like this. Sorry, it's been rough. Okay, so that's what it's doing, and it's really hard to show this without an assistant, but that's all that shape is doing. That's what we were trying to show last week, and this is just gonna go down and completely cover my embryo. If that makes sense. So that probably helps